Hey folks, welcome to Memphis. So imagine driving to Sioux Falls from Memphis, Tennessee. It's a 13-hour drive each way, 13 hours there, 13 hours back. And imagine carrying your gun Appendix and not experiencing any pain or discomfort. Every single time you get out of the truck to gas up or use the restroom, it's actually to gas up or use the restroom. It's not just to adjust your holster. It's not just to try to figure out what the hell is pinching me. Imagine that, right? Imagine driving to Dallas, which is 7 hours from Memphis, 7 hours there, 7 hours back. Imagine that. Imagine driving to Atlanta, Georgia, Appendix, and it's 6 hours there and back from Memphis. And imagine not having any discomfort or any pain. And part of the reason why I felt pressed now to make these videos is that I've been on a kind of a kick of podcasts lately, and I've reached kind of a lull between SHOT Show and scheduling issues. I found myself without anyone to talk to today. So I figure I would, I have been thinking about making a video about this for a long time. And so now I'm finally getting to it. The reason I bring that up is because I'm talking to these guys sitting down here, and I'm talking to them for about 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm on video the entire time, and the whole time I'm carrying. I work at a desk, I work from home. And so this is how I am. So it's important for me to make sure that, it doesn't hurt. But I wanted to share my perspective, and so let's just get right into it. The main person that I have to thank for getting me into Appendix carry is Ty Reed. He's a grunt. He's Marine Corps infantry. He's also a firearms instructor, and he also is a competitive shooter. So we just have a ton in common. We talk a lot about stuff, and he's got to be back on the show. He was the one that introduced me to Appendix carry. And before I started carrying Appendix, I kind of thought of it the same way that everyone else thinks of it. Do you know where that thing is pointed? Like how do you know that it's just not going to go off and hit your junk? If we had a gun and I put it inside of a safe, even if I loaded it, right? A magazine inserted, round and chamber, and I put it in a safe, is there any chance that gun would fire? Maybe it wasn't a safe. Imagine if it was just an ammo can. You loaded the gun, magazine inserted, round and chamber, and you loaded it and you put it in the ammo can. Would anybody be in any danger? Again, the obvious answer would be no, because as long as that ammo can is shut and it's fastened tight and it's locked, then there's no chance that anybody can press the trigger. It's only when that ammo can is open and someone puts their hand on it. Now you've introduced the chance of someone putting their finger on the trigger, and that's when the gun's going to go off. Same thing for if I put it in an Amazon box, right? If I just got a cardboard box from Amazon and I put the gun in there and then I taped it shut, is anybody in any danger? No, because once again, no one's going to get to the trigger. These guns have so many internal safeties, particularly Glocks. Like there's a firing pin block in the slide. There's a drop safe in the frame. And then there's also a little blade safety in the trigger. And all of those safeties are safeties that I don't have to think about. I don't have to remember to hit the thumb release or hit the thumb safety. I don't have to remember to decock it, or I don't have to remember all that stuff. But if you throw it off the Empire State Building, there's still no chance it could fire. The only way it's going to fire is if you press the trigger. And if I thought that it could go off on its own like that, then there's no reason for it to be in my possession or in my house. It's too much liability. Now, instead of a box or a safe or an ammo can, imagine the gun was in a holster, and a holster where the trigger guard is completely covered and protected. Is there any difference between the gun being in this box or a safe or an ammo can? Is there any difference between that and being in this holster? I don't see a difference, because either way, there's no way for anybody to get to the trigger. There's no way for that trigger to be pressed. And so it's just as safe. When this gun is in a holster, it is just as safe as it is in an actual ammo can or a box or a safe. In fact, it could be argued that the only way that gun is pointed is if it's in somebody's hand. Someone has to intentionally be in possession of that gun. And now that person that holds the gun has to be careful not to point it at things that they don't want to shoot. Now, I haven't been to gun sight. I haven't been there personally, but I've seen pictures. And I bring up gun sight because, that was where the late, great Colonel Jeff Cooper, that was where he created the 4 safety rules. One of the most important ones is never to point the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. And there was a sign at gun sight that said, guns in holsters don't cause problems. And I take that to heart. If that gun's in the holster, it's not pointed at anything. It's not causing any problems, because there's no way that gun can fire. There's no way that anyone's going to get to this trigger. So the important thing is going to be not to point the gun at myself in the process of holstering a gun. That's the most important thing. If there's a chance it can go off in the holster just on its own without a trigger press, then I don't need to carry it. And it doesn't matter what position it's in, whether it's in 3 o'clock or like outside the waistband, it can be off body. I don't care. I don't want it anywhere near me if there's a chance that it can just go off on its own. And I don't need to be carrying it appendix or otherwise. If the whole logic of it might just go off, that was very much alleviated for me very early on. But the other thing that I noticed from Ty is that when he had his gun on him, it was a lot more concealed and it was a lot more accessible, especially if we're sitting down. And of course, in our society, when we do a lot of driving and we're out to dinner and, we work at desks and we're doing paperwork and all kinds of other things, we spend a lot of time sitting down. At 3 o'clock or strong side hip carry, that ends up being a challenge to keep the gun concealed while you're sitting down. He let me borrow his Spencer Keeper's holster. At the time, I was carrying a SIG PT26. It helped me that it was double action, single action. I can thumb the hammer as I'm holstering it. That gave me a lot of peace of mind. I ended up going to Glocks because Glocks had, there was the availability of the striker control device, and that allowed me to do a very similar thing. That really gave me a lot of peace of mind there, and it helped me to experiment a little bit with it. But even with the gun and the holster, I still had trouble. And it still hurt me. I told Ty about it and I was like, hey man, this thing's a little uncomfortable. I'm starting to feel some pain. And he asked me one of the most important questions that any friend can ever ask another friend. And he asked me, where does it hurt? And it forced me to really kind of think about where that pain was coming from. When people say that, hey, it hurts when I sit, then there's a couple of things that they're talking about. And I made this dry erase diagram just to help me further illustrate it. And so with a lot of people, where it hurts is the gun is contacting their thigh, or the muzzle is hitting them in the groin or stabbing them in the pelvis. For a lot of people, what's happening is the rear sights are hitting their stomach. It's really kind of, the rear sights are cutting into their belly. Or for some people, and this is a lot more common than I thought it would be, but the entire belt is so tight that it's causing pain. It's just too much pressure. Well, around the same time frame, there's a company called PHLster Holsters, and PHLster had just released the Enigma. Basically, imagine having the same level of concealment in gym shorts and yoga pants as you do in jeans and your favorite gun belt. Because what it is it's a chassis that you attach your holster to, and it divorces that holster from your clothing. That got me really interested. Now, another thing that they did, and that was just one thing that was the main thing that really made me aware of PHLster holsters. The thing that really helped me with it was how John and Sarah Hopman actually went out of their way to create a community called the PHLster Concealment Workshop. And it's not just knowledge and posts and stuff like that. Like most of your regular Facebook groups, you're going to have like a bunch of different posts. But no, these guys actually develop guides. Like, this is how you do this. And if people are having trouble, they're getting responses a lot quicker. I'm talking minutes. You post something and within minutes, group experts are going to be there to help you along the way. That's very unique in the Facebook space. It really is. Most of the time, it's just troll posts and crap posting and stuff like that. And here's the thing. It's not just there to sell PHLster products. You have a lot of holster makers from other companies that come together for the purpose of allowing people to be more responsible gun owners that conceal their weapons better. Like a lot of these guys are here to help folks out, and it really just it ends up making it a very unique space. So that's where I learned a lot, and I learned about stuff like your sweet spot and peaks and valleys. And so you can get the most craptastic holster off the bin at your local gun range, and you can, if you know enough about how to conceal, if you know enough about the concealment principles, you can make that thing work. And also, it got me back into like experimenting with the Enigma again. About 6 weeks ago, I made a video called PHLster Enigma on Big Dudes. The PHLster Enigma has been my daily driver. I've been carrying it for about 8 weeks. I've mounted a JM Custom Kydex holster onto it. It took me a couple of different holsters in order for me to figure out which holster was going to be the best one for me and my gun on my body. If you're experiencing pain, then I have really 3 questions for you. A lot of this is drawing on the stuff that I learned in the PHLster Concealment Workshop and PHLster's educational resources on the PHLster Holsters website. But I didn't make this video in collaboration with PHLster Holsters. I didn't make this video with their consent or their permission. I'm not a person that shills to companies in order to get free stuff. I paid for everything I have here that I'm showing you. I didn't pay for anything from PHLster. I paid full price. I promote the causes that I believe in, okay? And I believe that PHLster is paving the way towards the future of concealment. I really do. Like these guys, you need to keep an eye on PHLster. And they're just awesome people. John and Sarah Hopman have helped me personally in my walk, and I think that they can help you too. So my 3 questions, if your gun is hurting you, then my 3 questions are this. Number 1, are you in your sweet spot? Number 2, where on your body does it hurt? And number 3, what part of the gun or holster is hurting? So talking about your sweet spot, what a lot of people do is they'll get their gun, make sure it's clear. You know, you see it clear and you feel it clear. And what they do is they kind of experiment with where that gun sits on their body for them to get the best comfort and the best concealment. If your gun's not in a sweet spot and you're experiencing pain, then stop right there and then just actually adjust to where your sweet spot is. That's probably going to fix your problem. Like if I put my gun over my belly button and I try to make it conceal there, I'm going to have a really hard time. Okay. A lot of people can do it, but me personally, I'm going to have a really hard time. Now, the next 2 questions are kind of together. All right. So where on the body does it hurt and what part of the gun or the holster is hurting? And so we're going back to our little diagram here. I apologize to my viewers. I'm going to apologize to the podcast listeners because I'm going to be as descriptive as I possibly can. But the main areas where commenters have expressed that, hey, this is where it hurts. And also this is where it hurt a lot on me. Me personally, I experienced pain. When I first started carrying, it was printing a lot. And there was a lot of, like, I would cinch down the belt as hard as I could, and there were still parts of the gun that were poking out. The mag well would poke out. You know, I would feel like the gun was tipping out, like my gut was pushing the gun out from over my belt. No matter how hard I cinched down my belt, nothing was going to work. Ty Reed ended up letting me borrow his Spencer Keeper's holster, and that had a lot of built-in features that, you know, really, really helped me out with that. It had a built-in wedge that was molded into the trigger guard. And that was able to rotate the grip deeper into my body. Not just that, but because it was so rounded, there weren't any hard angles. There weren't any pressure points. And so it was just a very comfortable holster. But I had a problem. I had a couple of problems. The muzzle was coming down and it was causing me some discomfort in my pelvis. It was applying a lot of pressure on my pelvis and in my junk. And so Ty was like, hey, how about a wedge? And so the Spencer Keeper's holster, they ship with wedges. It's a foam wedge. It's situated right there on the muzzle of the holster. And what it does is it alleviates that pressure, and it also tilts the muzzle a little bit further away from your body so it's not pointing at your junk. With the other holsters that had wings, that had concealment wings, what would happen is it was so close to my thigh that the wing itself was rubbing against my thigh. And that was a lot of discomfort. So the way I fixed that was I just moved that gun a little bit further over. I moved it away from my thigh to where it gave me some clearance. And that ended up helping me with the gun banging into my junk as well. So if your gun is banging into your junk, or if it's hitting your pelvis, or if it's causing you a lot of pressure, one thing that you can do, and this helped me a lot as well, is simply lift my pants, my belt, and the holster. Lift that up. Like if it's contacting, like if you're feeling some discomfort around your twig and dingleberries, your gun is too low. Your pants are too low. Your belt's too low. Your holster's too low. If you pick that up to where you have some clearance, then you're probably going to be okay. Making those adjustments while you're sitting down, while you're getting dressed, if you sit down in a chair while you make those adjustments, that helps out a ton. A whole crap ton. You have that going on, and then also where you situate your wedge is going to help out with concealment. It's going to help out with comfort as well. Now you have the foam wedges, and then also you have a pillow wedge, which is literally what it sounds like. It's a cloth sack that's filled with cotton, and that ends up giving me a lot of comfort as well. You can stuff it with as little or as much cotton as you want, and what that does is if you stuff it more, it makes the wedge more rigid, and it tilts the muzzle further away from your junk. And so that helps out a ton for me. So another issue that I ran into before long was with some holsters, the rear sights would dig into my stomach. And there was 2 ways that I found to fix that. The main way was to use an undershirt. Cotton or polyester, doesn't matter. Have an undershirt and tuck it in underneath the gun. Another way to fix that is, once again, to lift the entire apparatus up. A lot of times when the rear sights are digging into your gut, it's because the gun is so low that your gut is trying to come up over on top of the gun. And the way to fix that is you elevate the gun to where the rear sights are kind of even with your belly button. You notice right here on this diagram that the rear sights are just under the belly button. If you could bring it up a little bit more, a little bit closer to where it's level, then what happens is your gut isn't over on top of the gun so much. It's more alongside, and that's gonna keep the gun from, it's gonna keep those rear sights from stabbing. If that doesn't work, yeah, just use an undershirt. Tuck an undershirt underneath your gun. Is that gonna slow down the draw? Yeah, kind of, sort of, a little bit. I might lose 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second, but you don't need to have a turbo pen in order to stop whatever threats you're gonna need to stop. You really, like, you don't need a turbo pen. Like, if you can get to like a dark pen or a light pen, then, you know, you're probably going to be okay. And if you don't know what those pens are, you know, look up Gabriel White pistol shooting solutions, look them up on Google and take a look at those pens. Or just Google, you can go into Google and you can search for Gabe White turbo pen, and that's going to give you a lot of information. Also, there's one last point, is if your belt is so tight that it's applying a lot of pressure to the point where it's getting painful, man, just kind of loosen up your belt like a notch or two, okay? And what's probably happening is your gun is probably not in a sweet spot. If you have to cinch down your belt so hard that it's causing you pain, and that's what you have to do in order to conceal, then it's probably not in the correct position. Your belt shouldn't have to work that hard in order for you to conceal the gun. There's one last thing that I want to really kind of, you know, I don't know, maybe plug. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to be real with y'all here because of my own personal experience with the Enigma. If you've gone through multiple different holsters, like you've tried a bunch of different holsters and none of them work, you might want to just stop buying holsters and just go straight for the Enigma. I'm just being real with you here. And that's going to be so incredibly customizable that John Hopman, he describes it not really just as an accessory, but he describes it as a prosthetic. If you can imagine how much adjustment goes into that, that gives you a good idea of what we're dealing with. So I didn't make this video to sell PHLster products. I didn't make this video to, you know, as an advertisement. I made this video because there's a lot of people out there that are looking for help. There's a lot of people in the PHLster concealment workshop that are looking to help people. And if they can get together, I think we're going to be able to solve a lot of problems. Let me know if this right here, I know it's a little long and I do apologize for that, but I felt like this was the best way for me to answer that question. I'm a very detail oriented type of guy. So, you know, I get pretty deep into the weeds, but this right here is probably the most information I can stuff into a video like this. And I just hope it helps. If there's areas where I need to improve, please allow me that opportunity. Please allow me the chance to improve by leaving a comment. You know, I'm learning from you guys. This isn't just a one-way conversation. You're not just listening to me. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from your feedback, and I'm trying to get better. So thanks again for watching. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Welcome to Memphis.